Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the East Coast still, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast as well. And we are looking at Game 2 of the NBA Finals here after a 1-0 start for the series for Boston. Really nice shooting performance for them. Not quite as much from Dallas. We'll be diving into some best bets in this video. Also going to have play of props up in a separate episode, so make sure to subscribe to that page. We're coming to you with every single game with an episode the rest of this postseason. We also want you to head to thelines.com and use everything that's going up on the site right now for the NBA. Plenty of good content to help you as you're making your bets the rest of this championship series. Nate, let's go ahead and get right into your first bet. I will do a little bragging. We had a nice day there, 6-2. The kid went 4-0 myself, but some really good looks in a blowout that probably impacted a few things. So, what's your first look here for Game 2?
Yeah, I mean, we got the under in Game 1, and I think the first inclination is to flip that, and with the same total, think over, because think about Mavs shooting regression. But I'm actually going to go back to what we hit in the Mavs-Wolves series a bunch of times. Both teams over 101. Mavs team total is 103, and if you want to take them and Dallas to both get over 103, that's now at plus 120. You ladder it up a little bit here. I don't think we're worried about Boston scoring much. I mean, they're the best offense of all time. And as we saw with Porzingis back out there, are a real problem to defend. I don't think I think that's the one thing you can't count on is Porzingis making 6 of his first 7 shots and just like breathing fire. But I mean, he's a pretty damn efficient shooter, and Dallas is having trouble getting switched on to him, and he's going to have opportunities to hit. But I mean, what we're going to focus on is how bad Dallas shot. And you'd say like, well, Boston played really great defense. They matched up well. There were a ton of open shots given up by miscommunications, by just, in general, they were so open that sometimes, you get that butt naked feeling, right? And you can't hit the three. And PJ and Kyrie in specific, 0 for 7 on wide open threes, no defender within 6 feet. And those guys are going to be a little bit better. Dallas as a team, 18% on those open 3-point attempts, and basically only Luka with a good percentage as far as individual guys. There's a little bit of like, we're happy to be here vibe from Dallas after making it to the finals, crushing the Wolves, smelling themselves for a week, exactly like we saw with the Wolves, right? When they beat the champs and then they were going into this Mavs series. But, they did not quite realize, I think, how much Boston is just like frothing at the mouth to get this, right? And they're just like ruthlessly efficient on both ends. And I think Dallas, there was a lot of hesitation, especially from Kyrie when he got the ball. He's like, wait, how do I want to attack? Nobody's moving. We're all stagnant. The team going into Game 2 has a little bit of an advantage in terms of like they can make some adjustments, right? And so I think Jason Kidd, great offensive mind, Kyruka, both great offensive players. Like they're going to get some team offense going here. They're not going to have 9 assists as a team again, which was just really rough. And you're not going to score many points that way against a great switchable team that doesn't have weak links to pick at too much. And I mean, but more so, this is just like classic Game 1 Mavs, right? They ease their way into series. They often lay an egg in Game 1, as we saw against OKC. Came right back, 119 points, 11 more assists, 6 more threes, 11 more potential assists, shot 20% better on catch and shoot threes. So same kind of regression. Minnesota, they didn't even have to have that kind of positive regression just because Minnesota was kind of unable to deal with Kyruka. But they did score more going into Game 2 there. They did have a few more assists and hit 6 more threes. And with the Clippers series, yes, they also lost Game 1. It took some time to ease into that series. That was just an under series. But with Boston, like, you're going to have to score to keep pace, right? You're probably not going to be able to win this Game 2, which is, basically the series in terms of like staying in it, finding some belief here. You're going to have to get over 100. And Boston, I'm not worried about them scoring, like I said. So I think this is a good way to bet both, and you could still get the even money, even if this doesn't go over the overall game total, 214.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think one of the things you touched on, but you didn't get as specific as I want to briefly talk about is Luka. Like Luka also missed. How many in and outs did he have? Right, like if you go back and watch the shots that he took, like a lot of in and outs, a couple bad looks at 3, still got the 3-pointers, the 3 threes made, but like not very well 4. Yeah, 4 end of the game with 4, but not very many like like a bad looks necessarily, but a few of them were like bad. And then the shots that just went in and out. Like I think that was a little bit of just that variance that we see. And like you said, open shots all over the place. So I like this. I still, I mentioned it in the first video, like, look, this might be a close series. Doesn't mean there's going to be close games with these two teams. I don't want to oversimplify things because there were plenty of other shots taken, mostly by the Mavs, but the Celtics did what the Celtics do. The dude not taking threes was KP. He took a few, obviously, but he also hit a ton of those mid-range for them, which is what he does. Just shooting over anybody who comes at him because they're not really putting Lively or Gafford directly onto Kristaps very often. There's a lot of, team defense against him and switches that Boston gets. So I still think points are good to come by, but I do think the fourth quarter will continue to slow down. So I am going to go to this under 51.5. 51.5 in the fourth quarter. I don't know that necessarily you want to use everything from like game one as the reasoning behind taking an under in this quarter. I think it's more of just the general, it's the fourth quarter of the finals, right? And actually the last three finals in the fourth quarters have all averaged under 50 points per game and gone under for the majority of the games in the series as well, including last year where, look, it's the Heat and the Nuggets. It was a little bit different. That thing looked a lot it looked a lot like game one, to be honest, throughout the series as well. You can kind of say the same kind of concept here, but the same concept applies to the year before, which involved the Boston Celtics, as you know, when they lost to Golden State. That series averaged 46 a game in the fourth, and then this last one here last year versus Denver and Miami, that was 49 a game. This playoffs, these two teams, it's mostly about how slowly they're playing, right? 84 pace in the fourth quarter for the Celtics. And once again, there's a little bit of I guess, asterisk to that because of the fact that they were usually winning by a good amount going into the fourth quarter in their playoff games so far this year for the Celtics. So they didn't really necessarily have to go all out in that fourth quarter, but the slow pace is right in line with how much things slowed down for them in the fourth quarter in general, where they're really just a little bit more methodical. And the Mavs, like, they have 27 a game in the fourth quarter in these playoffs. Who do they play in the fourth quarter? They were the Clippers without Kawhi, not a fourth quarter team at this point. We know Paul George not, and then James Harden also just kind of, laid an egg there. Most fourth quarters was unable to bring them back ever. And then for the Timberwolves and the Thunder, like Thunder first series, they didn't really have much outside of SGA in the fourth, and they really took everything else out of the game for them. And same for Minnesota, where they just had one dude that you really trust in the fourth quarter. If you can shut him down, but this ain't that, right? This is going to be a little bit better defense coming from Boston than what we've seen against Luka and Kyrie in the fourth quarters, so far in the playoffs. And that was a little bit of the case here. It was a really low scoring fourth quarter in this last game, played at an 88 pace, 23 points, 24 points rather. 44 points scored in that one, 23 for the Mavs, 21 for the Celtics. And you still got a good amount of Mavs starters for about 7 minutes in that game. So I think overall, like, you're going to continue to see, like, if this is closer, assuming like this is closer, then you're going to continue to see that. I don't mind the blowout factor, even if it does come into play. I don't think that going over in the fourth quarter is necessarily correlated to that. Although obviously Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and company being on the floor means a little bit more offense, a little bit less defense, if that were the case in a blowout. But at the same time, like I would expect this one to be a bit closer than 20 points going into the fourth, in which case, like, things tighten up, man. It's the finals. It's the last quarter of the finals in a game that, like, everything is now feels do or die, because it basically is. So I'll just take them to continue tightening up and go under 52 points in this one.
Yeah, I was looking at this as well because, the angle is Boston slowing it down so much and then also kind of struggling in crunch time offense, like whether they're ahead by 18 and, like you saw in game one, they just kind of like sputter down to, throttle down, and then the backups get in there and it's just not the same kind of well-oiled machine, or if it's a close game and they get kind of bogged down and they're not getting the shots they want, and we get a bunch of misses and just slower pace, that it does make sense, even though I think we can still get over the 101 here. But yeah, I think in the finals, this is like playoff games magnified, where unders in the fourth quarter are definitely the better look. So let's zoom out a little bit and look at the series here from an awards perspective. And we said Dallas has a chance to win this series. I'm not going to be completely swayed off that by game one, but as far as probability, like, I think Celtics are winning this in 5 or 6. I just think if Porzingis looks like that, like we said, like, live bet the series in the first half. And if you watch what Porzingis was doing, it's like, yep, Yeah, that's a big problem defensively more than anything, more than his incredible shot making. But you can get some serious plus odds right now for, I mean, Jaylen Brown Finals MVP is plus 300 or so, and worth a look. Certainly, I mean, my biggest concern would be kind of like the voter fatigue, like that people wouldn't want to give him Eastern Conference and Finals MVP and kind of snub Tatum that way. I think you might want to hedge by taking Tatum MVP with the Celtics to win in 5, and that's be plus 500. And so even if you put, two other units on Jaylen and the Celtics in 5, which is plus 1,000, or Celtics in 6 plus 1,700, you're still looking at a 2-to-1 return, or if either of those two hit, a 7-to-1 or 14-to-1 return on your money. So guaranteed a good payout here in what I think is the most likely outcome is, I mean, primarily I'm like, what is this movement with the Kristaps Porzingis? Like I said, he did an incredible job in game 1 in 20 minutes and didn't miss a shot. There's no way he's going to ramp up to the point that he is the Finals MVP here. Like that would be absolutely insane for him to jump both these guys, and to see his line move from plus 3,500 to plus 550 at DraftKings is just crazy. Like I know like one like big public bet came in on Porzingis before the series started, but the guy is still coming in cold. He's coming off the bench, playing in stints, does not have his full wind yet. Let's see him do it for a few more games before you give him any shot. Versus, these guys who are just absolute two-way monsters. Tatum's still struggling on offense relatively to Jaylen Brown. I mean, it's been the case throughout these playoffs, and you could argue he has the tougher defender on him. But in this series, you can argue Jaylen Brown has a much, much tougher assignment on the other end, where he's guarding Luka to start and took Luka's cookies a few times and played amazing. Basically stopped that third quarter run by himself to say like, no, we're not losing game 1, with a couple of great defensive plays, finished with 3 steals, 3 blocks. I mean, to me, if you dive deeper than the stats, that's a lot more impressive than Tatum getting like 10 weak side rebounds or boxing out centers. And that's his contribution on the defensive end as much. I do think we'll have some Tatum games in there where he spikes, but Jaylen Brown, consistently should be around like 25 points while playing elite defense. And that's a strong case, I think, for him to get the MVP here.
Yeah. The only reason I mentioned it and didn't officially give it out in our futures video about the series as a whole and taking Jaylen Brown, which was like plus 650 before it started. So you did get that cut in half after game 1, and it would have been the time to take it obviously before game 1 in hindsight, but it was the voter fatigue that kind of kept me from it. And the idea that like Tatum can't, continue to shoot like 30% from deep like he has, but to be honest, like he can. And really, I think we should give the voters a little bit of credit here. Like Jaylen Brown guarding Luka is going to be taken into consideration. I don't think hollow rebound numbers will propel them to take a Jason Tatum pick there if he's averaging about 20 points per game, and Jaylen Brown's also at about 22 points per game. Maybe Tatum has a few more rebounds and assists, which he almost definitely will finish the series with. What's more important, like we're saying here, and if you're watching this and not just reading a box score, which I'm assuming every voter who's going to be actually contribute to who wins this award is watching every second of every game and going back and watching some tape and not just going, oh, look, Tatum 11 rebounds, nice game, 5 assists, okay, really well-rounded game. Like, yeah, for sure, really nice well-rounded game on offense. On defense, not the same level of importance with what he's doing as it is with Jaylen Brown. And we did mention like before the series, what I projected would happen in terms of the matchups is probably going to continue to be the case, which is PJ Washington on Jaylen Brown, Derek Jones a lot more on Jason Tatum. And I mean, both of those dudes are better at guarding those guys than the inverse. Like Derek Jones would get just put under the basket by Jaylen Brown, and PJ is honestly also kind of getting put under the basket. Like Jaylen Brown is a tank right now, so I have no qualms with this at all. And like however you want to bet it, I'm not afraid that Jaylen could win this at this point with voter fatigue based on how much he's impacting things on both ends of the floor. So speaking of hollow rebounds, what a great segue, because my last bet here in best bet is a head-to-head prop on DraftKings for rebounds. But I'm taking a combined over in this situation rather than just Tatum or Luka to get more rebounds than each other. I'm taking Tatum and Luka to combine for more than 18.5, which was available at the exact same number last game, 18.5, for much better juice. It's now minus 125 on DraftKings. I don't care. I'm still very confident in this bet. I mean, these dudes are both averaging a combined like almost 20 rebounds per game in the playoffs. And like, we don't really need to worry anymore that like their rebound chances aren't through the roof. They're both getting a ton of rebounds. Other dudes are just deferring to them. Like we've spoken about a lot. It's not an oversimplification to say the Dallas Mavericks players want Luka to get those rebounds. The Boston Celtics players want Jason Tatum to get those rebounds. And that's a big part of it. They want him to get those rebounds to start the break. And they want them in the positions that they are, which is close to the basket, not necessarily guarding key offensive contributors on the other side of the ball. So they're available to get those rebounds. For Tatum, it is also, once again, kind of what I said that Joe Maz would probably do, which is have him guard centers the way that he did against the Pacers and the way he did in the regular season in March when these teams played. And he guarded a lot of Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively at the start of the game for when Lively started in the regular season. This game, in game one, Daniel Gafford was guarded by Jason Tatum out the gate, and then continued that sort of guarding centers after that against Lively as well. Those are the two dudes he guarded the most. So that is a good strategy for the switching Luka defense, and that did at least cause some problems. I don't think Luka's afraid of taking on Tatum, but it's definitely a better matchup than it would be if you switch out, somebody else besides Tatum, like even Drew Holiday or Derek White, to be honest, or especially, Kristaps or Al Horford, obviously. So that's why you don't see those dudes guarding him, and those like KP and Al are on PJ a lot more in these matchups. So I like that for Tatum. He's at 10.5 rebounds per game, gone over this number, getting at least 10 boards because his prop is at 9.5, and I like the over once again for both their rebound props, honestly. So that's why I like this to be 20 to 21 rebounds once more, the way it was in this game one. So I like, if you want to take one of them or both of them separately, then this bet, great. But I am kind of like covering myself here that like both of them are capable of getting 12 to 13 boards. And if they do, then we need even fewer from the other one. So I like the combo of them both. For Luka, the numbers are 9.7 in the playoffs, 12 of 18 he's gone over. But if you dumb that down to the last 11 games, like I mentioned in the last video where I took Luka over 9.5 rebounds for plus money, which hit, still, by the way, minus 104 for Luka to get to 10, because he only got 10 in this last game on about 13 rebound chances. So like that's what he's done all playoffs, 10.5 rebounds in the last 11 games, gone over in 9 of them. And that's a key moment in time because that's when his numbers start to spike, is 11 games ago, which indicates there was some health stuff still going on. However much you want to believe in the health stuff with Luka right now is whatever. I mean, there was a weird sort of substitution in the first quarter, but he also is a dude that milks it, man. So I think Luka's fine. I think like you saw him not even get hit in the eye by Tatum in the first quarter. He kind of swiped at it. He like hit the top of his head a little bit and some of his hair. And then Luka's holding his eye like someone just stabbed him with a fork in it. It's just what Luka does. So he's healthy. Let's just get past that. Like maybe his knee is a little bit more tender than it would be, whatever. But like I'm not listening to reports that Luka wouldn't be playing if it was the regular season. I don't care about that, man. I think he's good to go. The 14 rebound chances and 2/3 of these rebounds that he goes up for, he gets the board, in part because other dudes are just letting him. It's the same concept as Tatum, weak side stuff that's really easy to get. So we'll just go back to it, over 18.5 for these two combined.
Yeah, and I mean, you said you'd take either of them separately, and if you don't have a DraftKings account, yeah, the way to play this is not to take either one, it's to take both. Parlay both to get 8 rebounds, minus 115, one to get 10, one to get 8, plus 150, both to get 10, plus 250. And I mean, if you're talking about 19 combined, that's pretty much what you're banking on. Like, is a pretty balanced contribution. It's not like one guy's going to have 14 and one will have 7. That seems unlikely. Given the fact that, yeah, they're both in such like mirrored spots where they're just guarding the weak side or guarding a center, and then just grabbing that interior board and being the most frequent rebounder for each team.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the thing about combining them is you kind of cover yourself against one team shooting way better than the other one once more, in the event that maybe there's not as many rebounds available for Tatum in this one, because the Mavs actually shoot better than 25% from 3, 41% from the field. I think we're both banking on that being the case, but still going to be plenty of available rebounds for both of them. So that is all the time that we have for you, though, in this one. Make sure to subscribe to that page. Going to have play a props up as well for you in a separate episode for game 2 and every game moving forward. So make sure to continue to follow along. Until we see you then, happy betting.